Good morning, everyone. I've been asked to do a small talk this morning about shining a light on death. And another way to think about that, another term, is dying to live, which is a common spiritual practice across many traditions. Because it's Good Friday today, even if we take the Christian tradition of Lent, and Lent is when you give up something, where you often undergo even a little bit of suffering in order to get the release, and from the release comes great renewal. And in some ways that's a very small example of a practice of dying to live, and the purpose of that is to absolutely illuminate life. So many people think that practices of dying to live or shining a light on death is morbid, and in fact I think what we really believe is that if we talk about death, it might actually bring it in, it might actually happen. But in my experience of spending time really shining a light on death, the illumination of life that it gives on life, it helps just show life in its glory and its magnificence. And when we start to lose our fear around death and we start to come more from a place of love, not fear, then all of it is actually okay. And indeed, this is in some ways what shadow work is also about. It is growing ourselves, or growing the capacity within ourselves, where we can hold life and death. We can hold suffering and joy. We can hold the complexity of life without it being either or. We grow in our capacity to hold the all. And we can bring in even concepts like death and get to know them so that they enhance our life. So last year we did a process with some girlfriends. We all put our name in a hat and we drew out a name. And then we wrote the eulogy for the person whose name we'd pulled out. And we spent about a year thinking about that eulogy and thinking about that person. And then one Saturday afternoon on a girls' weekend, we lay in front of a fire and there were two couches, and the person who was receiving the eulogy just rested, and in my case I was lying down on the floor, and it was as if I was at my own funeral. And I received the beautiful words of love and care and really deeply nourishing words from my girlfriend, the lady who read out my eulogy for me. That was a really interesting and wonderful process to do. So this week, when I've been thinking about this process of dying to live, in the meditation, you slowly take yourself down to your own moment of death. And in that moment, releasing and let going, release and let go, release and let go, release and let go. And indeed, we're practicing for that moment when we're actually going to die. And in that moment, if we are conscious enough so that we're raising our own vibrational level, then I believe that then that is the vibrational level that you travel once you go onto the other side, what we call the other side, which maybe doesn't exist at all. Maybe there is no other side. Maybe it's all here. It's all contained here anyway. So this time when I did it, I've done it several times over the course of this last week in order to deepen my own practice. This time when I did it, I felt completely comfortable about my own death. But when I was meditating on death much more wholly and holistically, specifically when I thought about other people dying, especially my son, my daughter, Chris, and also my mum, but to a lesser extent to my mum. Especially with my children and with Chris, I really touched my fear and my immense sorrow and had really deep contraction around their death. So then I started to think about that. So if I'm frightened of my own death, then that imbues everything that I do in life. So the same must be true if I hold an incredible contraction and deep sorrow around Jack dying and Ella dying or Chris dying. So what I realised by doing the process this time is that in that contraction, it absolutely affects how I am in my life with them. Maybe I'm a little bit more fearful as a mum, as an example. But whatever feeling that I have around their death, then one of doing preemptive anxiety, and that doesn't serve them and it doesn't serve me. But also, if I really do think that maybe the journey, the death journey, is the most significant and most important moment of our spiritual growth, then me holding incredible fear and contraction around their death starts to put that into our relationship. And I am much better for the sake of them and for myself to start to be okay with their death as well. And maybe whenever anyone dies, it's actually okay. Maybe there is no such thing as wrong time. Maybe there's no such thing as death either. So they're just some things to really think about. And one of the reasons why I wrote The Final Act of Grace was that when Adrian died a conscious death, and he'd done dying to live practices before, and he'd also done a lot of work to shine a light on his own death way before he was diagnosed. One of the reasons why I believed he lived such a conscious death, because he did live his death, he also died a conscious death, was because of his practice that he'd done beforehand to be really present, to be absolutely okay, that in this moment he was about to go on the most magnificent journey of his whole life. So out of all of this, a deepening, I need to start to practice a deepening okayness with all that is. My death, Chris's death, Jack's death, Ella's death, in fact, anyone's death. So, yeah, I think that's it. So enjoy your practice, journal a lot. What do you notice? Go to a quiet place. Imagine that you're dying. How do you want to be in that moment as you're dying? And then once you've done that, bring that into your own life here, shining a light on death. Thanks.